Hello and welcome back to the Tin Barn. I'm Pragmatic Lee, and in today's video we're going to finally wrap up this steady rest build for my Precision Matthews 1127 lathe. There's two things we need to get accomplished in this video. Those two things are, one, attaching the base that we made in the first video of this series, attaching it to the upright. The other thing we need to do is get ball bearings mounted to the, I guess these are brass fingers. I think we're going to mount these, do the mounting of the bearings first. But to do that, we need some shoulder bolts. Shoulder bolt will of course have a threaded portion that will drill and tap a corresponding hole in the end here. It will have a shoulder that will go through the bearing itself, through the center of the bearing, and be just a little bit longer than the thickness of this bearing. This bearing is 3/16 thick. This will be just a little bit longer, and that will be the shoulder that will bottom out on this. Then of course it'll have a head on it, and once we make these shoulder bolts, we'll go over to the mill with a slitting saw and put just a little slit in there that a flat screwdriver will go in. This will be a 1024 thread on this end. I'm going to be starting with a piece of 3/8 inch cold roll. We'll turn this outside diameter down just a little bit. We want this head to be enough to cover the inside race, but not interfere with the hangover of the finger. So let's turn to the lathe now. Okay, I'm over at the lathe now, and I got the 3/8 inch piece of cold roll mounted in the chuck now. And what we're going to do is turn the outside diameter to the diameter of what I want the head to be, which in this case is, let's see, that's on the other side, 335 thousandths, I believe it is. Then we'll turn the shoulder down to 250 thousandths, just a little wider than the bearing itself. And then finally we'll turn the end portion down to 190 thousandths, which is the diameter of a 1024, and we'll use a die to tap that. Once I get all that finished, making the three of them, then we'll carry it over to the lathe and mill the slot. Now that the 3 shoulder bolts are made, we'll turn over to the lathe now, to the mill now, and mill a slot in there just for a screwdriver. Over at the mill now, I'm ready to cut the slot in our shoulder bolts. What I'm going to do is, of course, use a slitting saw, and I've got one of the shoulder bolts mounted in a 1/4 inch collet. The length of this collet holder is just right to where it likes to fall between the ways on the vise, so I'll simply use one of my wide parallels. And I'm just going to line that up with the edge of the jaws, make it a little bit easier to repeat. Now, to get the center of that, I'm simply going to come over and use the Z-axis. We've got the Z-axis DRO set to 0 now, or turned on. A little bit hard to see up in there, but I want to get that where it just touches, and I'll zero out the Z-axis here. Now I'll pull over, come down, and then come back up until I just touch. That's reading 379 on the DRO now. Half of that's 189.5. So I'll come back up to 190. And just do a sanity check there. All right, I'm going to touch this off. Zero out the x-axis. I think we're going to start out with coming in a 75 thousandths maybe and look at that slit. All right, let's bring it out where we can see it. And that looks like a good slot. It is just just a little bit high, so I'm going to come down just a little bit for the next one. I just looked up in my monitor. What you're seeing on this slitting saw is light reflecting. It's not wobbling near as bad as it looks like in the monitor. It's actually running really true. Okay, now that we've got our shoulder bolts finished, we need to drill and tap each of the 3 fingers for that 1024. Now I did the first one off camera. And what I've done is located center on the y-axis, and I lined it up with the edge of the mill vise, the mill vise, and come in 170 thousandths. And this being relatively soft brass, I don't necessarily need to use a center drill. Just take it easy on the first touching. Okay, I think we're ready to go back to the workbench, get the bearings installed on these, get them installed on the steady rest. As I said at the beginning of this video, the two major things we had to do to finish this project up was to get the fingers, um, the bearings installed on the fingers, and to do that, of course, we had to make the shoulder bolts. The other thing I said we needed to do was get the base mounted to the upright. As you can tell, since the last time you saw this, it's got a good coat of paint, and the base is installed already. And what I did for that, I know most of you were probably expecting me to weld it on, but two things. Number one, my welding is not that good. I can make tables, big workbenches, large stuff, but on something small like this where I'd want a really good looking weld, I was not really comfortable with that. Plus the fact that I was afraid that the welding of it would warp it. I've gone through a lot of time and resources, if you will, to try to make this as straight and accurate as possible. I'd been pondering in my head from the time I started this project as whether I was going to try to weld it, or maybe carry it to someone else and get them to weld it. I don't have a MIG welder. That's what I would want to use on that instead of the big stick welder. But then one of my regular viewers that I really appreciate, he comments on a lot of my videos, commented on one couple videos back and said, "I sure hope you're not going to weld that," or something to that extent. And he was primarily concerned about the warpage. So that's what made up my mind that I was not going to weld it. What I did was simply go up under the bottom side. I use this angle block to get the two pieces lined up. Clamp that down good in both directions where it was held in place. Then set it up in the mill. And I actually did that when it still had the flat surface up here. So I did this some time back, but didn't mention it. If you were paying real close attention in the last video, you probably saw the holes in the bottom of the upright when I was turning it on the rotary table. But over here on this side, the flat side, I drilled and tapped for a 1/4 20 and countersunk a socket head cap screw. Over here on this side, I didn't really want to go the full size of the 1/4 20 over here, because that was going to be in the bottom of my V. So what I did over here was a 1024. Again, I drilled and tapped it, or drilled it all the way through with the tap drill. Then remove this, tap the bottom, tap the upright, and put this back in and drilled it out for the clearance bit for the 1/4 20 over here and the 1024 over here. Then use the countersink to countersink the socket head cap screws. So we're about ready to put this together and give it a little test. I've been asked if I was going to hinge this side over here, and I may at some time. Right now I'm just going to wrap this up, use this for a while, and see how inconvenient it is having to load this from the end of the workpiece instead of being able to hinge it up. I have a hinge that would work just fine for that. Put a little bend in it and screw it in place, and then put a latch over here on this side. But as I say, for now, I'm going to leave it just like that. Here's the finished for now. Steady rest, mounted on the lathe. Worked fine. I think I'm going to be real pleased with this, with the bearings on the ends. Just this whole setup. Again, as I said before, if it becomes too much of an issue of loading this on from the end, I'll hinge it back here and put a latch on this side. But for now, I think I'm going to use it for a while, see how it works, see if there's anything else I need to change, and just enjoy it. Hope you guys have got a little bit out of this video. A lot of different action going on, or a lot of different things going on building this. There was some surface grinder. Of course, there was some lathe work boring out this center. There was some mill work on these legs, and bandsaw cutting and rotary table work on the mill as well. Again, I hope you've enjoyed it. Take care, and I'll see you on the next video.